Welcome back to Spotlight. I'm Ed Juenka, and I'm here with the chairman of the Minimum Wage Advisory Committee, Mr. Simon Potter. Welcome to Spotlight.
Thank you and welcome, viewers. Again, it's a pleasure to be here. We know the minimum wage increase is long in coming, but we finally at a stage where we're getting something to you. But we're here tonight mainly for your feedback. We might give you some information to give discussion, but it's your night, it's your time, want your voice to be heard.
Good. And Mr. Member Jeremiah Fred, another member of the Minimum Wage Advisory Committee, welcome to Spotlight.
Thank you, Mr. Smith, and welcome to the viewers out there. This is a pleasure for this committee to come to you and give you information on what the Minimum Wage Committee has been doing.
And of course, my good brother Raymond Phillips, who comes by from time to time with the data that I love so much. Raymond, it's good to see you. Welcome to Spotlight.
It's good to be here.
Yes. Before I get into my questions, Mr. Chairman Simon Potter, why don't you go ahead, and I understand you have a brief presentation that you want to make to the public. You want to go to Jerry first?
Yes.
All right, Jerry, you want to make your brief presentation to the public and give us some information so we could get the ball rolling. As I said, the phone numbers are going to be up on the screen any moment. You can call or you can text. It's going to be 499-1950 for the telephone and 499-1328 for the text. Go ahead, Jerry.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Adam Smith, in his book, The Wealth of Nations, 1776, said, "It is about equity that they who feed, clothe, and lodge the whole body of the people should have such a share of the produce of their labor as to themselves tolerably well fed, clothed, and lodged." Adam Smith underpinned the mandate of the Minimum Wage Committee. By extension or purpose for convening this consultation meeting, we are here this evening to encourage you in dialogue in a very important socio-economic topic, that is the remuneration and condition of work within the territory. Our objective for this televised program is in keeping with the theme, "This is the time, let your voice be heard." This evening live broadcast is designed to solicit your views and to hear your concerns about the subject. As such, we encourage you to fully participate in the exchange. We invite you to ask questions, offer comments, put forward your suggestions, and advance your ideas when the phone lines are open to the public. This is perhaps a convenient point for us to explain the background of tonight's consultation. Under the umbrella of the Ministry of Natural Resources and Labor, a minimum wage advisory committee was established last year. The establishment of the committee is in accordance with Section 38 of the Labor Code 2010. Under that section, the ministry may appoint an advisory committee to investigate or review matters such as conditions of employment, the general conditions of the economy, and cost of living and basic minimum wage. It is common knowledge that the minimum wage in the territory is $4. The composition of the committee is governed by the code. Section 38, subsection 2 mandates that the committee shall consist of equal number of employees and employees or representatives of such other interest group as the minister deems appropriate. In that vein, we can mention that the committee comprises of the chairman, Mr. Potter, and the vice chairman, which is Benedicta Samuels. It also consists of other members from a wide cross-section of the community, from government ministries, department agencies, the youth groups, the Virgin Islands Christian Council, the Hotel and Commerce Association, as well as from various sectors and industries operating on the wider economic platform. Some of the sectors represented include shops and stores, restaurant, hotel, the building industry. Some members represent employers. Only some represent employees. Some also represent employees. The committee broad term of reference are governed by the combined effect of Section 38 and 39 of the Labor Code and the letters of appointment. In brief, the committee task is to compile, compare, contrast, and analyze data garnered from a plethora of sources. Thereafter, the committee will present a report to the minister. It follows that if the committee concludes the revision of its desirable, committee must recommend what new minimum wage should be. Since its establishment, the committee has extended countless time in research, including meetings and gathering statistical data related information from broader Caribbean region. In particular, it has made inquiries into other regional UK territories and to what obtains in those jurisdictions. The committee has been soliciting input from a broad range of stakeholders in the territory to identify relevant issues and concerns. In short, the compiler of some information enable us to present a comprehensive report to the minister. Our vital source of information is the public reservoir of ideas and suggestions. The Labor Code Section 38(5) permit the committee to convene public meetings to hear the public views, suggestions, and recommendations. We want to hear your views. We want to hear what you feel about the minimum wage committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Fred. Mr. Potter, you want to go ahead with your presentation?
Okay, at this stage I want to check a few things, a bit of statistics to give you some feedback as to what we are looking at so far, where we're doing, where we're heading. Again, our job is to increase or not to increase the minimum wage. The last time the minimum wage was increased was back in 1999. It went from $3 to $4 at that time. Ever since, that was about 1999, about 16 years ago, which is quite a while that nothing was done in terms of the minimum wage. Again, we do strongly feel that if people get more money in their pockets, they can spend more money in the economy. And people who make the minimum wage, we do feel live from paycheck to paycheck. And these are the people who, if they get more money, they will spend more money within the economy. And I think this is a strong concern. To give you an idea of the minimum wage in a number of countries, we try to look at the overseas territories. And many of them do not have a minimum wage. We do have the BVI, as you know, Virgin Islands, with $4 per hour. Turks and Caicos just came up with a new minimum wage, $6.25. Anguilla officially don't have a finalized minimum wage, but they do use a figure about $4.50. And all these numbers are converted back to United States dollars, US dollars. It's a US dollars equivalent. The USVI minimum wage is $7.50. St. Martin, St. Eustatia, St. Bart's, those islands is about $4.89. In Anguilla, in Antigua, is about $3.41. In the Bahamas, $4. Barbados is about $3.13. Dominica is about $1.50. Jamaica is about $1.22. And Trinidad and Tobago is $2.36. Other countries for comparison, Belize, could be compared to the Caribbean, is $1.65. And these are per hour. Canada, $8.68. Hong Kong, $3.87. India is about $1.88. Australia, $13.70. That's about one of the highest we've seen. In Japan, $7.40. And in the United Kingdom, $9.80. The United States, $7.25. We do know from our research that many different states have slightly higher or slightly lower minimum wage, but the federal average is $7.25. To give you a quick idea, we analyzed some data from the Labor Department. Based on the Labor Department information, we come up with 932 people who are making less than $5 per hour. 932 making less than $5 per hour. We look at some information from the Social Security Department, and from that information, we come up with about 782 people who make about $4 per hour, 782.
And that is out of how many people?
And that's out of a statistics of 18,771 people.
That's the total working population.
That's the total working population roughly according to Social Security statistics. And also in that number, there's about 1,929 people that make between $4 to $6. 1,929. If you add a number, I give you $4, and those who make between $4 and $6, is 2,711 people. Of that group, 1,841 are female, about 68%, and about 870 is male, about 32%. From that same statistics, 18,771, about 9,486 are female, so 50.6% of the total workforce. 9,268 are 49.4% are male. In that statistics, that population of 18,771, 5,256 are BVI landers, which is about 28% of our workforce is BVI landers. And then we have other islands, Vincentians, 1,554, or about 8.3%. And we have Guyanese, 1,532, about 8.2%, and Jamaicans, about 1,531, roughly 8.2% as well. And to give you a quick idea of some of the makeups, in the hotel and restaurant sector, people who make less than $6 per hour, we have about 671 people making less than $6 per hour. And the wholesale and retail industry is about 441. And in retail, real estate, and other associated businesses, we have about 283. In public administration, we have about 285. And in private household, like domestics, 250. That is making less than $6 per hour.
So the vast majority of the workforce is making more than $6 an hour?
The vast majority is making more than $6 per hour, yes. Correct.
Okay. And what's the average that the vast majority is making?
I don't have the average exactly here with me. I can easily calculate it from the statistics I have.
Okay.
But I don't know really.
Well, the question I'm developing is whether, how do we determine how much the minimum wage ought to be? Because if the majority of persons are making more than $6 an hour, then and they are finding it difficult to make ends meet at more than $6 an hour, then it stands that the minimum wage is going to have to be more than $6 an hour. Because is the goal of the minimum wage to make sure that persons working the territory, as Adam Smith stated in your presentation, about being able to earn a decent wage for their labor so that they could be properly housed, clothed, and fed. Certainly, you would want to have a minimum wage where they can be housed, clothed, and fed. Yes. And certainly, if you're making $6 an hour and apartment rent is $6 an hour, you cannot be clothed and fed with $6 an hour. You understand the point?
Yeah, I quite understand the point.
So how are we making those determinations?
The thing is that while we're charged to come up with a minimum wage, which will be given to cabinet and then they will decide. The thing is that because it have not been increased for so long, we really way behind. We have to play catch up. There's no two ways about it. And it'll be difficult to make one jump and go where it's supposed to be. It needs to be a bit of a phased approach, I strongly feel.
Okay.
But we will come up with a recommendation that should be implemented immediately. It might not be totally what a person can comfortably live off of, even though we might propose as well that it should eventually get this, another figure. But it is a strong concern, and we have tried to look at what's the cost of living an average person can live on, and trying to do that is not an easy exercise, and we have not concluded a satisfactory figure as yet. But we know it's a lot more than $4 or $6 per hour for a person to really live comfortable.
And we also have to take into account that while we want someone to live comfortably, we have to take the impact it's going to have on businesses. Can businesses sustain something higher than $6? So these are the things you have to, the overall impact on the economy.
And what you have a contribution to make to that, Mr. Phillips?
Well, I'll just add to what Jeremiah said. You know, we have to strike a balance, because while we want to help the individuals, we don't want to hurt the businesses. You know, so that balance has to be struck, you know, in order for it to work for everyone, because it has to work for everyone.
Okay. So you've been gathering statistics. And now you're ready to do what? You're presenting the statistics to the public, and you're asking for what you want the public to do.
Well, this is the time we come to the public to get your feedback, because lots of people are living on the minimum wage, and lots of people are being affected, both businesses and individuals. And this is the time that we come to you as individuals to let's hear what your concerns are, what your input might be. We want to come up with a comprehensive report, and we don't want to leave nothing out. We want to leave no stone left unturned. And I mean, we are a committee working without a budget, literally. But nevertheless, we want to do as much as possible to give a most comprehensive report back to the minister.
You want the people to tell you how they're faring on $4 an hour and what they would like to see the minimum wage is.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
so
and give support for what their rationale, where they think it should increase, where they think it should increase to, and so forth.
Okay. Well, I have a text already. It says people in the BVI in Virgin God are still working for $4 an hour. This is so sad. This is so sad when the month comes to pay your bills, you cannot pay. So, well, this one caller saying people working on $4 an hour cannot pay their bills with $4 an hour. So obviously, this person wants the minimum wage to increase. But you know, I guess it's going to be a stringent argument between labor and business, where you want people to have a decent life, but you don't want to hurt business. And the question is how do you intend to balance labor costs and business? Isn't that going to be determined based on how much profit you want business to allow business to make on the backs of labor? I mean, how does one justify a manager making $100,000 a year, you know, $100 an hour, and the person who's actually doing the work, the hard work, making $4 an hour,
Yes.
or $10 an hour even? How is that justifiable?
How is that justifiable? Well, there's a number of theories can apply to something like that, but that's the way it has been. And there's a quick saying that the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. But nevertheless, we are a capitalist society, and we want to look at all our people, and we concerned about all our people living a comfortable life. And the reason we are here, the caller from Virgin God has stated earlier that it's difficult to live on $4. We think we all understand and appreciate that. We did a telephone survey, for example. We survey a number of people on telephone, and based on the question that we have asked, one was, should if they pay minimum wage, and about 17.6% of the business we surveyed say they do pay the minimum wage. About 97% say they think the minimum wage should be increased. And these are talking to the business owners, not employees, because employees will probably also should be increased. But the business owners, about 97% think it should increase. Then we went on to see if it should increase, what figure you think. And about 41% said it should go to about $6 per hour. And about 35% said it should go to about $5 per hour.
And this is the business community.
That's the business
So the
community.
business community is in favor of an increase in the minimum
Yes.
wage as far as up to $6 an hour.
Right, from all limited telephone survey, yes, that was the case.
Okay. And how about the view that an increase in the minimum wage is going to also be an increase in the goods and services that's being sold or produced? That's the feeling is that. Well, have you been able to determine from the same businesses whether they will increase their prices to offset the minimum wage?
Well, one of the questions in the same telephone survey stated that if the minimum wage is increased, based on what they're saying, will it have any effect on their businesses, on their business? And about 79% said it should have no real effect on their business. There were some who said they might have to close down, they might have to lay off staff, and they might have to raise prices. But 79% said it shouldn't have really any impact on their business, provided it's a nominal increase.
And a nominal increase is
Like
an average of $6.
Around that,
$5 to
around that
$6.
$5 to
$5
$6.
Yeah.
So 79% of the businesses are in favor of a $5 to $6 increase.
And that shouldn't really create an impact on their business.
Okay.
They feel.
So they are willing. Well, they would say it was not going to create an impact, but what that really means is that they're prepared to absorb that cost. Because if you're paying $4 an hour,
Yes.
and then you now have to pay $6 an hour, that's a $2 per hour increase, and that money has to come from somewhere in the business.
Well,
So
well-
that it in a stands to reason that it will come from your profit
Yes.
as a business.
Well, the truth is, if
So it will have an impact.
If the
They're
minimum
prepared
wage-
to absorb that impact.
if the minimum wage increase across the board for everybody, we do feel that people who, if it's a business that patronizes, serve the general public, and the general public patronize, it's strongly felt that if the general public patronizes the business, they should get more business from these people who now have more money to spend. So the economy should get with an injection of it of a boost.
So you have a greater circulation.
We think so, a greater circulation
And
of cash.
it will spur economic activity.
It should increase some economic activity, and some businesses, before they get to a stage where they suffer, can see an increase in business as a result of this increase.
Okay. We're going to take a break, and we're going to come back with discussion. And as I said, the phone numbers are on the screen, and you can call me or you can text. I got one text already. I'll be happy to take your call, question or comment. Keep it locked right here at the Spotlight. We'll be right back with more of the Minimum Wage Advisory Committee members. We'll be right back.
Spotlight is brought to you by Tortola Concrete Limited, the National Bank of the Virgin Islands, and CCT Global Communications.
Welcome back to Spotlight. I'm here with the chairman of the Minimum Wage Advisory Committee, Mr. Simon Potter, and two members, Mr. Jeremiah Frett and Mr. Raymond Phillips. And we're talking about the minimum wage. You could text us, or you can call us. The phone number's on the screen, 499-1950 and 499-1328. Also, you can go to the Spotlight Facebook page, and you could post a comment or ask a question there. We got a suggestion from Mr. Geron Smith, thank you, Geron Smith, about his views to increase the minimum wage to $5.50 an hour. That's in line with what your general statistics are suggesting. So that's good. I'm trying to find out if you'll send back a post, say whether he's a business person or employee. How is that determined though? How is the minimum wage determined, and what role does inflation or what consideration you give to inflation in the decision of increasing the minimum wage?
Well, we look at inflation over the last time, since the last time minimum wage was increased. We did an average from 1999 to current. The minimum wage pretty much averaged 2.94%. 2.94%, almost 3% was the average over the last 15 years. During that time, we know what happened in 2001. We had 911, and with 911, things dropped. And in 2002, the inflation rate was only 0.44%, less than 1%. Then in 2008, we know what happened there again. The whole world economy went down. Before that, in 2008, the inflation was about 7.51%. It was the highest, that year it was the highest inflation rate, it was 7.51%. Then after it dropped back to pretty much around the normal, around 2 to 3% was the normal thereafter. If we average all of those, average out all of those years, if we add them all up together and see roughly based on the inflation over 15 years, the minimum wage should be in the range of just about close up to $7, based on inflation.
Inflation rate. For the minimum wage to keep pace with inflation, it should be about $7.
Yeah.
But you're not advocating for it to be moved to $7 immediately. You're advocating an incremental increase.
Well, as a committee, we have not made a decision yet what the number should be. We still try to get public feedback, which we want to incorporate into a decision. We work with data from the public, and it's still open. We still give people the opportunity to voice their opinion, and whatever information we get will be considered in making a final
But
determination.
you keep saying that you're looking for information from the public, but how is the public going to determine that type of information? Let's take this call, and I want to get to that waiting for the public to give you feedback on what the minimum wage could be. The public is going to give you feedback on what the minimum wage should be based on what they're feeling in their pockets, And I don't know, and you're saying that you perhaps can't do what the public wants because you have to take into consideration how it will impact the business community. Thank you for calling Spotlight. Go right ahead, please.
Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening.
One quick question. I didn't see the very beginning of the show, but I'm trying to get a verification of the figures that you had of the persons who are making the minimum wage, and whether that was the only revenue that they were making, or there were persons who would be making the minimum wage, either working a second job or working in a job where there are tips. So just confirm for me whether the figures you had, or when you're looking at the minimum wage, you're talking about the only revenue that they have. Thanks.
Okay. Well, thanks for the question. Again, the information I gave you was, number one, based on the work permit, and that's an individual work permit form, so that'll be based on what's stated on that work permit. And the other set of figures I gave you was from Social Security. If they're making gratuity, well, if the tips are put in their pocket, I guess I wouldn't report as part of their wages. But gratuity generally should be shared, and it should be included in part of their wages. So the figure from Social Security should reflect gratuity and so forth. But in general, these figures again is only from one job, because it's just from one source. So if they have other income, that's another thing. And that's an interesting point to note as well, because the truth is, as we know, if you have people who have to work 2 and 3 jobs, definitely you know what happens if they have children, especially a single parent. It's a problem for the whole society, because the children will be raised by the television or by their peers. And if that's the case, we're breeding a problem in the society, and that's again a strong concern.
Well, that's exactly what's happening right now. I mean, that's not an if or when. That's a reality presently, that many persons working under this condition of a minimum wage of $4 have to work 2 jobs, and I don't think that's going to change if you raise the minimum wage to $7, because you also have to take into account, well, how much have you taken into account the housing costs, just the housing and the food costs alone. When you talk about, let's just take housing costs. When you talk about living in a decent apartment, or 1 bedroom, a decent apartment going between $500 and $600 a month, and the landlord has to charge that figure because he has to pay a monthly mortgage of so much, and then that rent has to pay that monthly mortgage. I mean, how do you mitigate that type of circumstance?
Well, you see, in cases like that, you're hoping that we have like a family setup where in the household you probably would have more than one person working. When you speak about the single parents, that's basically where the concern comes in.
And when you have 62% of your population on sort of single parents,
it makes for a very difficult situation, and that's what makes our job difficult also. What's really unfortunate is that it has taken so long for it to be addressed, because as the chairman said earlier, it's going to be very difficult to just jump it to where it's supposed to be. If it is that it was addressed from time to time, from 1999 to present, then we would not have such a difficult job on our hands. But be that as it may, we still have to do something, in an effort to at least, start the ball rolling. Let's start to make it better. We might not be able to make it all good at once, but let's start to make it better with at least, starting with something that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, what kind of dialogue are you having with the business community? Because it seems to me that the business community has to play the major role in this decision making, not even so much the general public, but really the business community has to sit down and decide how much they are going to be able to afford to pay and maintain their business. What seemed to me to have happened over the many years that we have neglected to raise the minimum wage is that the business owners perhaps have gotten comfortable with a profit margin that has enabled them to acquire a certain level of a certain standard of living and acquire a certain level of debt. And now to go and reduce their profit where they are at a certain level of debt and a certain level of standard is, I think, where the adversity or the difficulty is going to come in. I mean, what's your view on that?
Well, so, the chairman will add to what I'm going to say, because that's why we did the survey, because we wanted to hear from the businesses, because we know at the end of the day that's where the impact will be felt most. So we wanted to get their views as to, you know, what kind of impact are they're willing to deal with. I know the chairman had some meetings, so I guess he can say something about that.
Well, one of the areas that came up heavy to us is that we try to meet with the people in the hospitality industry, and they're saying because of the tips and gratuity situation, they find it difficult to pay a very high minimum wage, because some employees in the season might make more money from tips than what they make from just their basic salary. So for that reason, they find it a bit difficult to pay a high minimum wage, and they are saying in their industry. And some states in the United States, they have two different minimum wage. One for people who make tips and gratuity, and a different one for other regular employees. We have probably not looked at that at this stage, but it's an area that we have to look at carefully.
But let's examine that reasoning. Let's examine that reasoning. I mean, I'm working as a waiter. The prices are set by the restaurant, and it would stand to reason, as a business, the restaurant prices would be set to cover costs and make a profit. Right?
Yes.
And part of that cost would be salaries.
Definitely.
Which would be based on whatever the wages, the fee schedule, the wage schedule is at the time. Now, if the consumer of the product wants to give me additional money for my smile and for me anticipating their needs, where does the difficulty in paying me a higher minimum wage come in?
Well, there's the tips that they give you individually.
Yeah, where's the difficulty?
But there's also some
in
hotels put what
why is the tips having a negative impact on me getting a decent wage?
Well, based on the tips themselves, as I say, the tips that you just put in your pocket is a little different. There's somehow a service charge, there's a gratuity that's added on the check, and that goes to the company, and the company distributes it. And according to the labor code, there should be a committee set up really that deals with these gratuities and service charge that's put on the bill.
You understand? But you understand do you understand my reasoning? My reasoning is that the tips should have absolutely nothing to do with your salary.
That's one of the reasons why, in considering a minimum wage, we are leaving out the idea of the tips. But we listen to the argument, and we try to get a rationale and how we should report on this.
Because it seems to me like the service industry, is using the gratuities to supplement wages, or not that they taking the wages and taking the tips and paying it as wages. But what they do is they say, well, since you're making so much tip, you don't need to make so much money.
Right. That's what they say.
You know what I'm saying? That's what they say.
That's exactly what
and then to me that is unfair, because the tips that I get is based on, in a large measure, the service that I give at the table, and perhaps the cook and everybody else in the kitchen get a part of that tip because they produce the food and they clean up and so on. But me, the waiter who's out front, to a large degree, I determine how much tip is going to be given, apart from what now restaurants are setting gratuity, which I don't particularly like. But they are setting gratuity, and the setting of the gratuity, adding it onto your bill automatically doesn't provide an incentive for good service, or takes away the incentive for good service. That's one of the things I have a beef about, but I don't mind, because I know it's hard work and I pay the gratuity, and a lot of times I pay more. But what I don't like is having that gratuity used as a measure to suppress wages.
You're quite right. There's a few other sectors that we noticed that this plays a role as well. People like hairstylists, nail technician, barbers, from the work permit, most of them come in as pretty much close to minimum wage. And I thought these people are professional in their own rights. And I would have thought they paid much more than minimum wage. But looking at the work permits issue, a lot of them come in at the basic minimum wage. And you look at social security records based on what is reported. The majority of us get less than $6 per hour in this profession, and that's a little strange.
And then, and again, too, the government's revenue is also lessened because you don't pay pay payroll tax on the tips.
Well,
I mean, is that?
As the tips go directly to the individual, put in the pocket, not. But if it goes gratuity and it's shared, it should be included in the
payroll tax.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Let's take Scott. Excuse me. Thank you very much for calling Spotlight.
Yeah,
Good evening. Go right ahead, please.
yes, good evening. Speaking about yes, good evening. Speaking about the service charge business, after working in this industry for 25 years, what I have detected is that the owners of business don't really pay you from what they make. They pay you from service charge. Service charge. So there is no need to say what they say.
No, but what should happen is that they should pay you your basic wage plus the service charge, a portion of the service charge.
Listen carefully to what I'm saying. If they pay you minimum wage, that doesn't come out from their capital, that comes out from service charge. I work at some big establishment all around in the BVI, and this is what they do.
Okay, well, yeah, that doesn't sound quite right. But anyhow, thanks for the comment.
And we're going to come back and continue the discussion right after this.
Spotlight is brought to you by the National Bank of the Virgin Islands and CCT Global Communications.
Welcome back to Spotlight. I'm having a conversation, I'm trying to have a conversation with members of the Minimum Wage Advisory Committee, Chairman Simon Potter, Member Jerry Fred, and Member Raymond Phillips. Excuse me. And we're having a really interesting discussion about what's the cost, how to get the minimum wage increased, what it should be increased to. And someone raised the issue about whether the minimum wage is a problem or the cost of living is a problem. Can you see a relationship between the cost of living and the minimum wage? Is it that the cost of living need to be reduced and not the minimum wage need to be increased? How does that work?
Well, I personally think it's a combination of both. But reducing the cost of living is not going to be an easy task, because then you have to rely now on the producers of the goods and services, for them, as you alluded to earlier, to now cut into their profit margins, and we all know that in business, that's not the ideal thing to do. So I don't think it would be very easy to address the issue of reducing the cost of living. I mean, I know back a couple of years ago, a committee was formed, to look at certain things that could be done. And it seems that whatever could be done would be something that government would have to address.
Let's go to the phone. Thank you very much for calling Spotlight. Right ahead, please.
Yes, good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening.
I'd like to piggyback on Mr. Edgerton, your question just now. Are we not putting the cat in front of the horse, meaning if we increase our minimum wage I can almost bet that the cost of living will go up when it comes to cost of goods and other stuff. You guys are on the table. Are you guys foreseeing that problem, that issue coming up? And if it does, how will we deal with that? Because if you're telling a man to, they want more money out of his pocket for his workers, you may want to increase his goods, okay? All right, good night. I'll have and listen.
Okay, thank you for that comment. It's a comment we've been getting almost constantly, and definitely the minimum wage increase is supposed to give people a better standard of living. And if the minimum wage increase and the cost of living increase equally, you're back to square one, and that we don't really want. I know a number of people said you should talk about Consumer Protection Agency, but there's a number of things that government need to look at. We quite agree with that. But we have a specific mandate, which is to work with the minimum wage. We could make certain recommendations and will make certain other recommendations in our report, what we think government should do as a result. But our main thing right now is the minimum wage. But the cost of living is of concern to us, and that to a large extent should determine what the minimum wage should be. Because what we want to get is a society where people can live comfortably, and this is how it should be done.
I got a text. One person agreed with because some of the employer taking the tips for themselves and not giving the employee any of the tips. I mean, well, that's a illegal activity.
Yes.
That's against the labor code. If you don't know that, you need to know that for the employer to take the tips for himself or herself is illegal. So you need to challenge that with the labor department or in a court of law. I know of persons not being truthful with their income.
I'll tell you just real quickly, in terms of employee taking the tips, it's been said that Labor Department need to more inspection. And the Labor Commissioner is a part of this committee. And she definitely said right now they only down to one inspector. And again, part of our recommendation is going to be that the government hires more inspectors. Again, it's more expensive to society, but it may be a necessary evil, because if it's really a problem, we have to really deal with the problem. And it seems like it is a problem in terms of inspection and inspecting these different businesses.
In terms of law enforcement.
In terms of law enforcement, yes.
But this goes back. This goes back to my initial premise that there's got to be a harmonious relationship between labor, business, and government.
I quite agree.
And to me, this is really the crux of the matter and the root of the problem. We're trying, when you try to get a balance between business and a decent wage for labor, the business community is going to have to agree as to how much profit they are going to make and how much of that profit they are going to share, and the importance to a society from a social standpoint, how the standard of living is going to be for those persons that's producing the wealth for the employer, for the business. Because what is happening, as you say, and some of your statistics are borne out, is that persons are working 2 jobs to try to sustain themselves and their family, not to have a decent quality of life, just to survive. And in that process, in that survival process, they in essence neglect their children, which then turns out to be a burden in the society, a social problem.
Definitely.
Right? So you need to have, so businesses got to say to themselves, as stewards of the community, as those persons that are providing food, clothing, and shelter for the community, this is what we are going to make, and this is the quality of life we are going to have for our business. And this is the quality of life we want to provide for the community so that our business could thrive and we can diminish the potential for the social ills that is developing around a large profit margin and a low wage system. I think that this is where we need to be going, and if we have to really determine a true wage for employees, not even a minimum wage, but a living wage, is I think what we should be focusing on. Is that something that you're coming to? Are you beginning to move towards or look at or examine as part of your terms of reference?
Okay, this conversation came up before in other meetings. a living wage. And the thing is that I strongly believe, though, that many businesses in the BVI don't do like our orientation, doesn't orient their staff properly, do very little in terms of training. And the truth is, if you do more proper orientation, do a bit more training, get more production from your employees, you can comfortably pay them a better wage, and businesses and profit should increase and not decrease. The truth is, if you pay them a better wage and they do less or they do the same old thing, then it could affect your profit margin. But the truth is, if we can get people to agree, which is easier said than done, that you train them properly, you pay them a bit more money, and again, the training could come first, you pay them a bit more money after they train, and they perform better. It could be a situation where your profit could still increase. I mean, sometimes when hard time come, people try to do more with less. But when things are flourishing,
well, I think your profits should increase, because if your customers are happy, productivity should increase.
It should increase.
And if they have more money to spend, that money will be spent back into your business.
And it's circulating in the economy.
In the economy. So it doesn't make sense for me to make a profit and my employees can't afford to buy the products that they produce.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So I think the businesses who want to make a large profit margin and deplete
Yes.
and depress wages are in essence hurting themselves. Now, and what I can see from the multinationals, the global system, and multinational corporations is that they have, it seems to me that they have in their mind that a certain group of people on earth should be slaves. And you know, I mean, some people could get angry or they could have a different opinion. I really don't care. But a certain set of people on earth should be slaves, and a certain people should be wealthy and have all the luxuries that life can afford. And so they set a global system where they shift the wealth to one group and take the wealth away from another group. In our country, we have to start looking at how we are going to harmonize labor, business, and government for the quality of life to improve for everyone. And I'm not against a business making a profit and having a good quality of life, given the fact that the business is taking tremendous risk. But I think the business should also understand that the people that's producing the wealth, for that business to get a return, get a profitable return on their investment, is also valuable.
Yes.
Definitely.
You know,
It's part of the capitalist system.
well, we're gonna get to that. Thank you very much for calling Spotlight. Right ahead, please.
Good evening again. Great discussion, Cromwell. I think I support persons having a comfortable living. However, I don't know if the statistics bear out the insinuation that the local businesses are making such a high profit margin and that they can't afford to pay the wages. I think it's probably a lot more complicated than that. The point that Mr. Patam talked about earlier in terms of the efficiency of some businesses is going to become a lot more important in the increase of the minimum wage. One of the challenges that we're having, we know globally, is consumers are demanding lower prices everywhere. And so businesses are forced to become either more efficient or more innovative so that you can continue to deliver those prices. I mean, sometimes you might be willing to pay for better service, but in this age of information, everybody's really price driven. And as we continue to increase the minimum wage without necessarily becoming more efficient, it creates a complication for some businesses. There are some businesses who are maybe very efficient at their game and have been able to do very well and still pay a low minimum wage. But there are some businesses who, are really struggling, and they're paying minimum wage sometimes because that's what they are making. Sometimes they've kept their employees on staff because they're comfortable with They built up a camaraderie. So it's complicated in terms of the effect it will have. I noticed that in the earlier, I think Mr. Potter said the statistics that he had indicated that from the businesses that he talked to, 96% of them felt that their business wouldn't be affected. I don't know if that's accurate, but if you can restate that again,
79%.
how much?
79% say their business will not be affected.
79% said that their business wouldn't be affected, which might mean that they don't pay minimum wage, or they don't really pay minimum wage, because a lot of businesses don't really pay minimum wage anyway. They pay more than the minimum wage. But those statistics and in the sectors that you are talking about, which is being affected, or which will be affected, and the ones that pay minimum wage and the ones that don't. Even in the restaurant industry, it's not easy to say which businesses are making a lot of money and which businesses are not. It's you're going to have more data than that to see whether efficiency is a problem, price is a problem. And the last point is that I agree that the cost of living is high, and the cost of doing business also in the BVI is high. And maybe it would be a good idea for them to find some way that businesses themselves could see some kind of increase in their profit margin, because they are suffering from some of the same problems that everyone is suffering from in terms of the cost of living or the cost of doing business in the BVI.
Well, let me ask you, Carl, I'd like to ask you a question.
Sorry, go ahead.
What you think is, what are you attributing, or what will you attribute the cost of doing business in the BVI to? Is it high taxes? Is it infrastructural costs? Why is doing business in the BVI have such a high cost in your view?
First of all, I would say that because it is relative, and because everything that we do, we seem to compare it to our neighbors in the U.S. So when we talk about the cost of goods and services, we make comparisons to U.S. prices. We don't make comparisons to Angola prices. We don't make comparisons to St. Kitts prices or none of the other countries. We just make comparison to the U.S. or what we see online or on the internet, those that dominate the internet. So we look at those things as how quick can I order something, have it land in the BVI, and skip the other regulations that we might have. For businesses themselves, you have rent, which in the BVI, in the town, in the commercial space, could be very high, because we operate side by side with a financial services industry. And so paying rent in the BVI could be very high for businesses, especially if you don't necessarily own your own business. Electricity is also very high. And then you have the cost of staff and payroll, which goes along with the employees that you have, who also have to live in rent housing that may or may not be high. And so there are some places where we can point to where we consider doing business costs could be high in the BVI.
Well, businesses, for example, when you talk about rents, for example, that's a business-to-business expense. So the businessman landlord is renting to the businessman store owner at a price that the businessman store owner can afford. Shouldn't they establish a relationship where they keep their costs in line so that they could do business together in a more cost-effective way? Because I mean, why should the businessman landlord desire to keep his rent high, and the businessman store owner why should the employee suffer for that particular relationship?
And I'm not saying that the employee is suffering. I'm just saying that these are the circumstances in which businesses operate in the BVI. And so making the insinuation that the business owner is making a lot of money and the person who's making a lower wage or minimum wage is being a slave is not necessarily a comparison that you can generalize with. You have to become more specific in terms of the business that you're talking about, and as it relates to how these businesses are going to function. Is that what I'm saying?
No. All right. Thank you very much for that. Thank you very much for that.
And I strongly believe there are some businesses on this island that pay much above the minimum wage and very profitable, and some that pay minimum wage and hardly making a profit. And the truth is, if minimum wage should increase significantly and employees don't get more efficient, then it's a useless exercise.
Well, you're talking about the efficiency of the employee, and the efficiency of the employee to what end, though? I mean, is the efficiency to employee to keep the costs down, or is the efficiency of the employee to increase the profits? I mean, what is the goal of the efficiency of
it should
of
be
the
both. The
employee?
efficiency should help keep the costs down,
Yeah.
and it could help drive revenue
Well,
up, which could drive profit.
let's examine the prudence of the businessman or the business person. When I look around sometimes, when I observe some business people sometimes, right, I see some business people act with a certain level of imprudence, use of the company's money, use of their profits, to perhaps have a lavish lifestyle, and instead of channeling that money back into the business and reinvesting in the business and making sure the employees are happy so that they can in fact produce more for them, and everybody enjoy a quality of life. Instead of doing that, I may have 3 or 4 different boats, or 5 cars,
No horses.
or a house that I need a map to get through, So how come we never hear that type of discussion? Isn't that a valid discussion to have?
I think it's a valid discussion. I always think of the New York Yankees former owner Steinbrenner. Everybody always say why he spends so much money on players. He invests in the best players so that he can have a certain result in championships, and therefore the value of his company continue to grow through television rights and other things because his team is winning, and plus he plays in the big market as well. So it's always good to invest back into your company.
So what I'm driving at here, and I know I'm turning the conversation into something else, but for a long time I've been observing the whole economic picture in the BVI and looking at and observing what's going on around me, and it seems to me that we continue to not look at a more holistic picture, a more holistic economic picture, and we either say, we always say, well, it's like the employees are the needy ones, the employees have to give more, the employees have to be more efficient, the employees are the ones that's never satisfied, and I think we need to look at the whole society and see culturally, socially, and economically what's going on, so that we could perhaps create more balance and harmony in the environment, so that everybody could have a quality of life that reduces or have a positive impact on our social condition. I'm going off in a speech.
I think you're quite right, though. A lot of our people, really and truly, who run businesses do not separate their personal life from the business. A business should be a separate entity apart from an individual. Yes, you make certain withdrawals from the company to do certain things, but a lot of time our people spend the money doing personal things, and the business suffer, and they blame it on paying employee high wages. But the truth is, and the employees see this, and they get lackadaisical approach, and the whole business suffers as a result. Whether they run the business poorly, run it properly, again, this problem might have never existed in the first place. And they could continue paying better wages, and the company continue prospering.
Well, certainly you're going to have to come back on next week or the week after that they had to continue the discussion. But what are you planning to do now? What's your next step in the process of advising about the minimum wage?
Okay, as we are now, as we still gathering some data, the aspect of a living wage or the aspect of a cost of living, we still trying to come up with a figure. We have looked at a number of things as well, but we have not fine-tuned a figure we're comfortable with as yet to know what the cost of living should be. We know whenever we put a minimum wage in the first step, it wouldn't reach what a comfortable living would be. but nevertheless, we want to see what it takes us to really get there.
But
And,
your final outcome will, that you can say safely that your final outcome will be an increase in the minimum wage.
Yes, we definitely
You're going
think
to
so. There will
recommend,
be
you
an
recommend an
minimum
increase in the
wage.
minimum
We think
wage.
that's why we were formed, and we think it's necessary from all input from businesses, from individuals.
The amount of data you have gathered so far,
It should increase.
it should
Yes.
increase. So how
It's a
much
matter of-
how much it increase is to be determined,
Is to be determined.
and when it's to be increased is to be determined.
But when it's to be increased, we can make a recommendation again. That's up to the minister to, as a
Okay, so you want to increase now, and but you don't know exactly. You want to increase. It should be increased as soon as possible, but exactly how much is still to be determined.
Still to be determined.
All right, cool. Any last words before we go?
Yes, just quickly, one of the things that we've been hearing a lot on the stump is regarding the Consumer Protection Agency. I'm not totally against the Consumer Protection Agency, but we have to be careful. We're in a free-flowing economy, and therefore, if we bring in consumer protection, we have to be mindful how strong it is and how it impacts the overall economy.
Well, you see, one of the things that we have to, I think that we have to be mindful of as a territory, a community, a society, is that we don't get bogged down in capitalism versus communism, or capitalism versus socialism. We need to adapt our principles of a free market economy,
Yes.
as well as an economy with a social conscience that is going to provide the best quality of life for us as a people. We shouldn't get. My view is that we shouldn't get bogged down in some other foreign economic principles and concepts of how our economy should run, when those philosophies, concepts, and principles are suitable for large economies in most cases, and for different types of cultures in other cases. We need to see how these various principles and economic concepts are best suited to us,
That's
and
another
adapt from each, or from sundry, what we want, so that we can have the quality of life we want to have. That's my view on that whole
That's great.
subject.
The thing is, Cromwell, that we strongly feel that whatever figure we set, there'll be some people will be happy, some people will not happy. But nevertheless, we will try our best to gather as much data as possible and come up with what we think is the best decision for the country as a whole. That's our goal.
Well, my final word would be, I hope the businesses are listening, because, to me, the most important thing is the reaction from the businesses.
Yes.
Because we don't want, setting a higher minimum wage to backfire, because, it goes totally against what, what the objective is. So I'm just hoping that the businesses are listening, and, that they play their part, because it's, it's for the betterment of all of us that calls this paradise home.
Yes, and we need to sit down seriously with the businesses and negotiate with them on a serious, statistical and data-driven basis as to what is really possible to maintain a good relationship in the community, good social behavior, and a good quality of life. I think that's the discussion that perhaps you really need to.
So some education need to be done.
To be focused on. I can't thank you guys enough for coming, and I'm hoping that in the near future you'll come back. Simon, Jerry, and Raymond, it's always good to see you, brothers.
Right.
And you're doing a fine job, and we are looking forward to hear some good things coming out of this advisory committee in the near future.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you very
for being on
much.
Spotlight. Next week, the Spotlight is going to be a fun show. They ain't gonna got a heavy, hot and heavy like tonight, and make me cough and all that kind of stuff. The lovely contestants for the Miss Fifth Form pageant will be under the spotlight next week. So make sure you're here, make sure you tune in. We're going to have a lot of fun. I always have a lot of fun with the young sisters and hear their aspirations, their goals, and their views and their philosophies. It's always entertaining. And of course, the Miss Fifth Form pageant is here, so the pageant season has begun. And August is right around the corner. Easter is this weekend. August is right around the corner. The year is flying. Keep it locked right here to Spotlight. Spotlight, of course, is seen Tuesdays at 8 p.m. on JTV Channel 55, and then rebroadcast every Sunday afternoon at 2:30 right here on JTV. Again, you can see all the spotlights you missed on demand at jtvlive.net. You could follow Spotlight on Facebook. You could make comments. You could engage in discussions, or you could suggest topics and persons you want to have interviewed. Continue to remind you that when the Spotlight, Ahmed Juenka, I forget my name even. Ahmed Juenka reminding you that when the Spotlight is on, you see the facts. Peace and blessings.
Spotlight is brought to you by Tortola Concrete Limited, the National Bank of the Virgin Islands, and CCT Global Communications.